Well, hi there, food friends. It's Kevin.
Yes, welcome. I'm Ralph, behind the camera.
And welcome to Cavalcade of Food. And today, Ralph, we are making a date nut cake.
Wow, that sounds old-fashioned and yummy.
It is old-fashioned. And we love the old-fashioned things. And this recipe actually came out from an episode a couple weeks ago I did about orphan cookbooks. Remember the bag of and box of cookbooks that were left on my porch?
On your doorstep,
yes,
like a
on my
little
doorstep.
orphan Annie.
And among them was this cookbook called Recipes from the Little Switzerland of Ohio.
We got such a nice response to that episode, and people who were very familiar with this
and people
region.
who were from the Little Switzerland of Ohio, which, by the way, is Sugarcreek.
Sugarcreek,
is
Ohio.
the name of the town. And this cookbook is by the Guild of the First United Church of Christ in Sugarcreek, Ohio. I could not find a date anywhere on this book, so I don't know when it was published, but just filled with wonderful recipes, one of them being the date nut cake. And I had recently, just by total coincidence, come into a package of dates, which I don't buy very often.
And that would be obviously the first and most important ingredient in this cake. So
and I remember thinking, I mean, you could just eat the dates because dates are yummy.
Yes.
But and then as I'm going through this old cookbook from Sugarcreek, Ohio, here's this recipe that called for a pound of dates, which is exactly what I had on hand. So I don't think we eat enough dates in this day and age, do we?
I like them, and I like there's. It's kind of old-fashioned too, but you used to be able to buy like a date nut bar or a fig nut bar. I think it was dates, but yeah, dates are really underused and underappreciated.
Well, and I think the other thing too is that I think a lot of people maybe now, dried fruits, raisins, dates, prunes, they don't get used in the same way that other things do, sweet ingredients do.
So just remind people exactly what you're doing.
So I'm chopping the dates. So the cake itself calls for a half a pound of dates in the cake batter. The recipe will be you'll find it in the description below the video. So I'm chopping these dates because the dates I had were whole pitted dates, and we need to chop them up into small pieces. So I'm just using my kitchen knife here to kind of go through there and chop them into smaller pieces. I measured them out. Look at this with my
American family scale.
With our scale here.
That looks quite old.
That's a way back. Anyways, so okay, I've got the dates chopped up here, and they're sticky.
Are they candied?
They're not candied, but they just they have a lot of natural sugars. Just like prunes are sticky and raisins are sticky, and these kind of dried fruits.
This would be good in a gorp. When people used to make like a trail mix, and it was, I think they called it gorp. Although maybe it'd be too sticky for your fingers. But I could picture this with nuts and chocolate and other fun edibles.
So I've got the dates in a glass bowl here, and the recipe says to get a measuring cup. Take a teaspoon of baking soda.
Got it.
Okay. Take a teaspoon of baking soda and sprinkle it over the dates. Okay?
Does that help them separate, maybe?
I don't sure. Then it says take a cup of boiling water.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to measure out 1 cup here of boiling water and pour over. Okay. And then let me get all these dates under the water here.
Let that baking soda and those
Do its
sugary
thing.
dates do their alchemy.
Then you're just going to set this aside, put it over here, let it cool. Now I will gather the other ingredients for our date nut cake, and we'll start putting our batter together.
Ooh, yum, I can't wait.
Ralph, the next step in this process is to cream the shortening and the sugar together. Now, the recipe just said shortening, so you could use a vegetable shortening like Crisco. You could use, it calls for a ½ cup. You could use a stick of butter or a stick of margarine.
What about lard?
I guess you could, but you know, you usually don't use lard with a cake because lard actually has a flavor.
And it would taste like a meat cake.
That you don't want in the cake.
Yeah. Okay.
So, butter or margarine.
And you're using both.
So,
what's your shortening?
I've got butter in here.
Oh, butter.
So, now I put in my 1 cup of sugar and we're creaming it together. Now, we've done this before, right?
Yeah, sometimes even without the KitchenAid, it's more work, but we've done it with like a beater or by hand.
So we, you know, basically here's, you can see what's happening. I don't know if you can get the camera in there.
Oh yeah.
So it's putting that together and it's going to get nice and fluffy.
How do you know when it's ready?
It should look fluffy. I don't know. It's probably not a great cooking term, but that's how I judge.
By the texture and the look of it.
Yes.
I like how it matches the color of your KitchenAid mixer.
It almost does. Okay. I would say it's there, and of course, when we spatula, when we do this kind of mixing up, we like to scrape the bowl down periodically. It's an important step. Make sure to get all that stuff in there. So, all right, the butter and sugar is creamed together. Now we're going to add an egg at room temperature, please. And we'll get the egg in there.
And there's a little trick you taught me. If you're making this kind of not in a hurry, but if you don't have time for the egg to get to room temp, you can put it in room temperature water for
about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
And we're going to add a ½ teaspoon of salt here.
To the creamed sugar.
Just regular
and
salt. And now we're going to put that all together.
Oh yeah, now it's getting real wet and creamy.
And again,
time to do the sides.
And I'll give it another good mix, another good blend.
That's how you make sure every bit of it's getting mixed in properly.
Yes.
Even off the beaters?
Well, the beater will take care of itself.
Okay.
It's the stuff on the sides. Okay, we'll come back. So next we're going to add our flour and dates and nuts and all the other good stuff and get it ready to go in the oven, which, by the way, is preheating to 325 degrees.
Also, you want to let our friends know that the dates, after pouring that hot water on them, you had to let them cool off before they're ready to work with.
Yes.
So make sure that, well, this step will help.
Yeah,
sure
just cool down to about room temperature.
Right. Okay, well.
So we've got our butter, sugar, salt, and eggs all mixed together.
Egg singular.
Egg, yeah, thank you. Egg singular. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put in our date mixture.
Which has cooled to room temp.
Yes, along with our flour.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of alternate. So, 1 scoop of that. This was the instructions here. Scoop of that. Let's see if I can get most of it in the actual mixing bowl. That would be good, huh?
Yeah.
1 scoop of that.
Oh, you mean as opposed to getting it all over the counter?
Like I'm doing and like I normally do.
Yeah. Guys are slobs.
So what we're going to do here, thank you for reminding us, Ralph. Guys are slobs. All right. Let me do a quick scrape down. This is just all-purpose flour too, by the way, in case I didn't say so. Okay. 1 scoop
of dates.
Dates.
With baking soda.
Yep.
1 scoop of flour. Another scoop of dates.
I love that this cake really is going to have a lot of dates in it. And by the way, I chopped up a 1/2 pound of dates for the cake itself, the batter. The topping will have another 1/2 pound of dates.
Wow.
So you need a full pound of dates for this recipe.
So it's really a datey cake.
It is.
And if you play your cards right, it could be a date night cake.
Right. I was just wondering how we were going to get to that.
Did you know I was going to say that?
Yeah, or something, yeah.
Date night cake.
So, whoop, wrong way. Let me scrape this down. Okay, I'm going to finish. I probably got 1 or 2 spoonfuls of each of the flour and the date mixture, and we'll come on back when I'm done and add the final ingredients, which are a cup of chopped nuts. I'm using walnuts in this case.
Yum.
Can't have a date nut cake without the nuts, right? And then I got to put some vanilla in.
Unless you count the nuts as the cook.
The nut who's making
the
it.
cook and the camera guy.
So, okay, we'll be back.
Try not to put it on too high because we're not trying to film an I Love Lucy episode here.
Okay, Ralph, I just finished the flour. Putting in the flour alternately with the date water mixture. And I mean, I put it all in, water and all.
Because it had baking soda in it.
And it had baking soda in it. That's almost like it was almost like a date juice. All right, I'm going to put in a teaspoon of vanilla. And then
come the nuts.
The nuts. A cup of chopped, in this case, walnuts. You could use pecans too, I suppose, if you were so inclined. But walnuts is what I had.
Walnuts is what we'll get.
I'm going to do one last
side scrape.
Now, the recipe in the book called for putting it in an 8 by 12 pan.
They don't even make those anymore, do they?
Well, I don't think so, or they're not very common. I know I have 1 or 2 somewhere in the bakeware archive.
I know I have a 9 by 13. That's the more common size
That's common,
now, right?
yes. So it called for an 8 by 12, which I just can't put my hands on quickly. I know I have one.
But if you were to use a 9 by 13, it would just come out flatter,
it would come out thinner,
less thick. Yeah.
But I don't want a thinner cake.
So what are you going to do?
I'm using an 8 by 8.
Oh, so it'll be.
Or you could use a 9 by 9.
Okay.
Square pan. So that's what I'm going to use instead.
That way it'll come up to the top at least.
It'll be a little, hopefully not beyond the top.
Not beyond, yeah.
So we're going to go for a little taller of a cake, and I hope it works because we do have a topping to put on it.
Yeah, you mentioned it's going to have the remainder of the pounded dates, the other half pound.
Yes.
And those will be chopped up, obviously, too, right?
Yes, they have to be chopped.
All right.
Again, if you can find, dates are not as common as they used to be. And so sometimes they used to come chopped, and you might still be able to find them pre-chopped, but if you can't, just get the whole ones and chop them up. All right, so here is my 8 by 8 pan. And
in we go.
In it goes.
So you call this a cake, but it might actually come out more like squares if you want it, maybe.
Well,
I guess it depends on how thick they are and how you cut them.
yeah, I mean, in an 8x8 pan, or even if you baked it in the 8x12 pan, as the recipe suggested, they are going to be square pieces. There's really no other way to do it. I mean, you could put it in a round cake pan, maybe, if you wanted more of a wedge cut.
Right. I'm just picturing the density of them being. I guess I'm associating with the date nut squares that I've had before, or date nut cookies or something. But bars, yeah, that's what they call them, bars. Oh, look how he's jiggling it. Tell us what that does.
Well, I'm just evening out the batter.
Okay.
Now, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, you know what, folks?
It's going to rise too much.
We will see.
You know what? The topping can just be on top.
It's going to rise. It's got the baking soda in it. So we will see how this comes out. I may have regretted putting it in this small of a pan. But
remember how Julia Child used to just flow with the...
We go with the flow.
So we'll just go with the flow.
So what did I say? 325 degrees. Okay. And it's going to be...
It's going to be...
About...
What it's going to be.
40 to 50 minutes until the test's done. And we'll come on back. And in the meantime, I'll get cleaned up. And I'll get stuff together for the topping for our date nut cake. So the cake's in the oven, still baking. I'm going to get started on the topping. So here's what we've got. I've got that other ½ pound of chopped dates.
Right, okay.
Okay. So I'm going to put these into the saucepan here. And to those, I'm going to add a cup of water.
Just regular room temp?
Yep.
Or hot, okay.
I'm going to add a cup of sugar. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And we are going to bring this up and cook it until it is all thickened up.
So this will make the topping.
And then we'll let it cool, and we will put this on top of our cake. I did take a peek at the cake. It is risen, not over the top exactly on our 8x8, but I think it's risen to the point where I may want to put it on a plate or on something else before I put this topping on.
So you're recommending try to stick with a larger...
So maybe a 9x9, or if you have a 12x8 pan, to use that.
Right, that's ideal.
But I mean, we'll make the best of it.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Hey, it's still going to be tasty.
But we're gonna get this topping cooked up here.
Yes.
Here's what I did. I took our cake I turned it out onto a cooling rack so it would cool, because I knew that it was going to be just a little too high in the 8x8 pan to hold the frosting, or the topping. It's not frosting, I'm sorry. And then I put it on a nice platter. And
the cooling rack made these impressions so that you could almost cut it into slices.
I know, it's almost like, but you know what, I don't think we're going to cut it that way. I think we're going to cut it into squares.
Okay.
But now here's the topping that we boiled at a low boil until it was thick, kept stirring, and then we cooled. Look at it now, Ralph. Look at that.
Yeah, I want to see how this goes on.
So this just goes
in spoonfuls on the top.
On the top. Take it right to the edge of the cake.
That's why it's called a topping.
Yes.
would do that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
See the big chunks of dates?
I'm so glad you got it out of that old recipe book from the orphaned recipe books that you found on your doorstep.
Yes, and from the good folks in Sugarcreek, Ohio.
Oh, who made that little cookbook, the little
Yes,
recipe book.
at the church. So, well, we might as well put it all on there, right? I mean,
I don't know.
so I think if you were in a little larger pan,
It would spread out.
Well, it would kind of contain it too. Are you pointing because there's no topping there?
Well, there could be
There's a blank
more.
spot. We'll fix that.
Yeah, right there. See it?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, now does this have to cool a bit before you cut it?
Well, you could let it sit. And, it's going to drip down.
It's dripping nice on the sides.
Yeah,
it
isn't it?
almost looks like a German chocolate frosting.
It kind of does. But we're going to not wait because we just can't. Right?
Well,
And
I'm worried, though, if you cut it too soon. Well, you go ahead and try it.
we're going to let me
Try one of
start
those.
here.
It looks like the kind of cake that would be good with
Scoop
a scoop of ice cream, vanilla, or whipped cream. It just looks kind of like it's going to be sweet, but I might be wrong.
There's the cake.
Oh, look at that.
Okay. I'll cut another piece. Some people think you don't ever get to, I don't let you sample. But believe me, I do.
If they only knew, yeah.
So I'll put it on its side here.
I'm not
Okay.
eating that train wreck. Just kidding. They look great.
So I don't know which one you
No,
want.
you go for the.
All right.
the
So
pic-
let's.
We should take a picture of that.
Look at that. Beautiful color on the cake. Kind of that brown.
Almost
That's
like a
from the
molasses.
date liquid.
Yes, and it's looks like it's going to be moist and thick.
Wow.
Let's see that face again.
It is a sweet cake. Definitely.
Could you picture it with some vanilla ice cream or?
Yeah. So you're really getting, the dates really are just translating as a real sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
you're
texture.
getting and the texture because you're getting those chunks of dates,
All right, I'm gonna.
and then you're getting the crunch of the nut.
All right, I'm going in.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like a good piece there.
Looks like a great piece.
Mmm. Mm-hmm. Different. I've never had anything like it.
I haven't either.
It's very good.
Really good. Really good. And what a wonderful way to use a pound of dates.
Right. It's definitely on the sweet side, but
Mhm.
maybe you could cut the sugar a little bit if you wanted to.
Well, what's really sweet is the topping.
Topping, yeah. But yeah, the
The
cake
cake on its own is sweet, but it's not overly sweet, any sweeter than a lot of
it's
cake.
got a different, unusual flavors, but it's really good.
It's
Tastes old-fashioned. Tastes like people
Very.
used to like things that were a little bit off the beaten path.
I think the date and the nut are a perfect combination here.
Yes, on the inside.
If it
yeah.
was just dates, it wouldn't have the impact, or if it was just the walnuts.
Yeah, whoever figured
Yeah.
out that dates and nuts go together, they were onto something.
They really were. And we're onto something right here, celebrating good food with our food friends, Ralph.
Old recipe books.
Old recipe books. Thank you again. And I'm really thanking Cam and Denise, who were the people who left those books on my doorstep, as we came to find out.
Yes, it was Denise's mother's.
But a great recipe. There's a few more in there I want to explore. Really, a lot in that cookbook. And I know I've said it before, and I know I did a whole episode on community cookbooks. There's some of the best out there.
Yeah, and the response we've gotten to that episode has been marvelous.
Yeah.
People sharing stories and ideas and identifying with that town in Ohio that book came from. So
Yeah, so maybe you have a favorite recipe that you found in a community cookbook, or maybe you or somebody in your family used to make a date and nut bread or a date and nut cake. Certainly an old-fashioned idea, but one that is timeless in its flavor and its delight.
Spread the word, spread the love.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll say thank you. Don't forget the website is cavalcadeoffood.com. You're watching us on YouTube, and we appreciate that. Please share, like, and subscribe. And you know what, Ralph? We'll see our friends again real soon, right back here on Cavalcade of Food.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.